Well, Faster My good afternoon. Yes, that music means only one thing. Manx Radio's Mannin Line. The voice of you, the people of the Isle of Man. Alex sitting in for Andy today and on Monday. Now, what would you like to talk about? It's open line through till 1. In the news, yes, Manx Care is making unpalatable decisions in order to balance the books. Do you think this is a dose of reality? Do you think there should be political intervention? Do you think it's the right thing to do? What's your opinion on that? Also, the cost of gas in sheltered housing. That's another story that's hitting the headlines today. And fly tipping too. We've got this story about how it's time to tackle fly tipping on the Isle of Man. Why do people still litter? That is a question I have generally for you. In this day and age, and we live in such a beautiful place, I had to do a trip to Liverpool last Saturday, and I came out of Liverpool Lime Street, and I'd bought myself a salad from M&S Food or something like that, and I had to walk around for ages just to find a litter bin, and I was determined I wasn't just going to leave rubbish anywhere for someone else to pick up in a railway station. Couldn't find a litter bin anywhere, but most of the time there's no excuses. The fact that there's bins everywhere, yet people still drop litter. Why do we do that? Okay, we'll talk about that within the next hour. Please do give me a call. It is the best way to get in touch with the Mannin Line, 66 13 68. Chris Quirk is ready and waiting to take your call. Andrew is already there on line 1. He's been waiting patiently. Good afternoon, Andrew.
Hi, good afternoon. I have a question about Manx Care.
Fire away.
I haven't been able to find an answer. And it's quite simple. For every doctor and nurse they employ, how many administrators do they employ?
Now, basically, this is the perennial argument between people on the front line, effectively, and then people who administer and sit in the office, effectively, isn't it, is what you're getting at?
Yes. I mean, I asked that question of British Rail way back in 1980. How many drivers, guards and signalmen do they employ compared to clerks? And the answer came back. There were 4 clerks for each driver, guard and signalman. It makes me wonder just how many administrators are working in the hospital.
Now, the question is, though, we do raise the topic of administrators, and I very much fall into the yes Prime Minister camp of the civil service and administrators are always seen as people who are process-orientated. There's no end goal, it's all in the process. But when someone doesn't get their appointment letter through from Manx Care, for example, that's because of somebody who is in administration. So do we not need these people to do all the paperwork and the appointments and shuffling around in order for the services to be offered?
I would say we need some, but probably they've got more than they need.
Oh, okay. Do you have any experience of Manx Care, good or bad, from this point of view?
Well, I don't have experience with Manx Care, but NHS Devon, when I was based at Exeter, I had a good friend who was a clerk in the Royal Devon and Exeter Hospital. And she said she could do her 8 hours work within an hour if she really wanted to. She'd be sitting around looking for work. And I wonder how many clerks are doing that sort of thing at Nobles.
Well, it's a good question. I'm sure that someone out there will be able to give us an answer. But thank you very much for calling, Andrew. Great to hear from you. Now, is it that perennial question of how many administrators are required? Because it's a very easy hit, isn't it, that we can just come up with absolutely anything and say that, it's always the people on the front line that get cut, and there's always loads of administrators. Well, administrators are required, in terms of making appointments, taking appointments. If you ring up and you can't get through to anybody on the other end of the phone, that's someone that you might have then complained was an administrator that wasn't needed. So, but the question is, how many and what's the proportions? Who knows? Okay. Let's have a look through some of your texts coming in. Do give me a call, by the way, 66 13 68, if you have an opinion on this or any other topic we might not have mentioned yet. That might be getting your goat, and we'd love to hear from you. Katie says, I do wonder about all these jobs within government. If you delved into it, how many of these people in department jobs are related? Here we go, the nepotism argument, i.e. jobs created for family members, mates on good salaries and pensions, and are they actually qualified for their positions? And do you know what, Katie? We could sit and do pub talk on that for hours, and I think everyone's got an anecdotal story. But do we have any way of finding out the evidence of that? And if, I'll put an example to you, if someone is in charge of something and they need somebody and they know somebody who can do that job, okay, if we refuse to allow that person to do that job, are we worse off because of it? Because we needed someone who was that skilled, okay? It's a question. Thank you very much to 820, who's texting saying, I'm really appalled by the attitude of Manx Care and our Chief and Treasury Ministers, saving a drop in the ocean whilst wasting millions on capital projects and more executives. My wife is in agony and has been waiting over a year already for a hip replacement. I'm sorry for your wife, obviously, and that's a question. Are we focusing on big things completely out of touch? Millions of pounds on piers and ferry terminals and sea walls and things like this, whereas what matters to people day to day is, can I get my hip replaced? That's a very good point. Thank you very much for your text. It's only taken 12 minutes. I would have been disappointed if I waited any longer. Bonzo, afternoon.
I'm sorry to keep you waiting. I was otherwise engaged,
I'm glad you called in.
Otherwise, I would have been first on there. Yes.
Glad to hear it.
Yes, administrators in all sort of walks of life and such. Yes. Yes, I know it's the reflection of the classic yes minister with the hospital with no patients in it.
That's the one.
Yes, and not enough administrators, apparently. They didn't have enough to fulfill the establishment, so all the administrators were actually overworked.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a good one.
It was an excellent episode, yes.
Oh, absolutely fun. But the thing is, the ratios of how many people you need in the back office to how many people you need, out front actually doing, they can sometimes be remarkably large in terms of the back office, but necessarily. I mean, it's like the Royal Air Force. How many fighter pilots do you think there are on the Royal Air Force?
Oh, off the top of my head, I'm sure my MD would know, but off the top of my head, I don't know. Go on, give me one.
Well, it's apparently fewer than there are footballers in the Premier League.
Wow. That's a bit concerning, actually, from that point of view. But
it is slightly. But yes, there are, because, of course, you've got squads. Mm-hmm. I'm not talking about 11 each on the Premier League side, obviously. But, you've got your squads of the 20 clubs. And the squads of the 20 clubs, there are fewer. There are more of those than there are actually people flying strike aeroplanes in the Royal Air Force.
Well, the interesting thing is, if we put that into, shall we say, a metaphor that's more local, in terms of, say, Michael Dunlop or Peter Hickman at the TT, there's one rider, but how many people are in the team behind the scenes supporting that one rider?
Absolutely. And also the other people who are then providing the spares and the and the prep of motors and things like that. Just to have one person do something takes an awful lot of people. I remember the RAF had a recruitment poster like that, and had a pilot and a navigator in front of a tornado. There were about 400 other people behind them.
So in terms of when people criticise Manx Care, what's your opinion then? I'm talking specifically now about the idea that, that image of there's far too many people who are involved in administration and not enough people on the front line. What's your opinion?
Well, strangely enough, I had some personal experience of this because I did the Caldecott confidentiality review for a regional health authority the previous life. So, I did experience NHS administration and some NHS administration at the senior level. Yes, is something that would need looking at. But the idea that if you have 3 times as many administrators as you do people on the front line, that this is somehow absolutely dreadful. Well, you've got to actually look at the case for it. Because all that IT, for example, now that we use has to be supported. Mm-hmm. And that needs a fair whack of people. There are also the people who support the machinery, the scanners and such. And then, of course, there are all the other people who, caterers and the cleaners and those people who are sending out the letters and getting them back and ordering supplies and maintaining all that and such. So there's quite a lot of people you need, at the blunt end. To make sure that the people at the sharp end can do things. That doesn't mean that there isn't the capacity to go around looking at the back end and thinking, maybe there are some things that we can alter.
Well, I mean, from your perspective, do you think a lot of this is perception that's based on tittle-tattle and rather than real evidence?
Yes, I think it's a perception that sort of increases because the perception is talked about.
Yes. I mean, someone sent me a little picture which I thought was really, really good in terms of because they heard I was on the Mannin Line this week, and in terms of people's perception as to what Manx Care and others must be full of well-paid managers and things like this. They sent me this picture that said, if you didn't hear it with your own ears or see it with your own eyes, don't invent it with your small mind and share it with your big mouth.
Yes, there is that one. But this kind of thing also reminds me of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where apparently one planet decided that they wanted to get rid of all the telephone sanitizers and pen pushers. So they put them all on a spaceship and said, yes, you're the cream of the race, and you're going off to settle another planet because our planet is dying. And so they got rid of them. But then, of course, the people on the planet that had sent them, they all died off because there were no telephone sanitizers to stop the plague, and there were no administrators in order to sort out how to combat the plague.
Okay, Bundy. Well, thank you for that final uplifting little story there, but it's good to talk to you.
Yeah, okay, nice to talk to you. Bye.
Take care, bye. Always lovely to hear from Bonzo. Thank you, Bonzo. Let's get a few of your messages coming through on WhatsApp. Tomo says, afternoon, Alex. Manx Care and the staff... Manx Care, the staff are understaffed, or as I like to call them, the foot soldiers. They're doing a brilliant job. There's managers managing managers on big salaries for those living off island and being employed by Manx Care. What a joke. Once again, Tomo, evidence or perception, anecdotal pub chat? I'm happy to have evidence to persuade me. As usual, the people in need are left to suffer in pain while the others just keep taking the money and the staff just get more and more frustrated. I don't think there's any doubt in the fact that healthcare will always need more money and that the staff are doing an absolutely excellent job in trying circumstances, and the fact that trying to get staff to come to a small island with an ever increasing demand on health services, because there's always a new treatment, there's always a new skilled procedure that might need to be taken up by the NHS and Manx Care that we have to find staff and money for, I'd imagine. Pete says, Alex, so the 2% income tax increase that was ring-fenced for Manx Care has turned out to be insufficient. Dr. Allinson, the Treasury Minister, obviously got his sums wrong. Maybe it should have been 5%. Thank you, Pete. That once again falls into that argument. Are they overspending or underfunded? And I know certain politicians, the health minister especially, is very public about their opinions, including the chief minister as well. But it will be an ongoing argument. I'm never sure you'll get to the end of that. I think people have opinions strongly on both sides. Thank you very much to the message in from Andrea, who says a nation's health should be the priority before any capital projects. I received a letter from Nobles which said dictated on one date, which was a week after the appointment, and then typed a week after dictation. So there's a problem there. A visiting consultant told me that in Nobles, one department doesn't speak to the other, and if there's an appointment issue. Oh, interesting. Well, once again, I don't think that Manx Care are going to deny that there aren't issues. and communication is a difficulty that they might need to sort. If I have to, play devil's advocate, a nation's health should be the priority before any capital projects. A few years ago, the New Nobles Hospital was a capital project that we paid for out of the National Insurance Fund. So capital projects are required to, you can't just not spend on your nation's infrastructure, otherwise it crumbles. In fact, many would say that we're trying to up the population by 15,000 without the infrastructure to support it. So, there's only one pot of money. Neil has been waiting patiently to talk about Manx Care. Good afternoon, Neil.
Good afternoon, Alex. I'm going to come at this from a slightly different angle. I actually think Manx Care are doing the best they can with the facilities they've got. I think the problem is this government policy of bringing in thousands and thousands of people over the last 7 or 8 years. Too many people have arrived here. I don't think we need to bring 15,000 in. I think we need to reduce by 10,000. It isn't just Manx Care that's struggling, and the education system is struggling, and the infrastructure. I mean, fortunately, we had a very wet and damp spring, which meant the reservoirs were pretty full. But if it was like last year, when we had a dry spring, then the situation may have been different. But no, I think the problem is population growth, which has been far too great. And incidentally, Mrs. Cope was on here, I think probably end of last year. Andy had an interview with her on this programme. And I actually came on air and asked her whether the Council of Ministers had approached her or the department with any views about accommodating the extra people they were going to bring in. And to be fair, I was quite shocked that they hadn't even consulted with the executive level as to how much this increase in population was going to impact on services. To be honest, I think we need a complete vote of confidence in Mr. Cannon and his administration. I think they're totally out of their depth, to be frank.
In terms of what the points you raised there, Neil, that it kind of goes off the back of what I said before, that if you're going to increase your population, you have to invest in the infrastructure. And I think many people feel that we're not investing in the infrastructure to be able to cope with these people. The roads are crumbling, that we haven't got, as you know, enough investment in schools, as you mentioned, the health service and things like that. But if I take their argument in terms of the economics, if we were staying still population or reducing population, people were leaving like they were in the 80s, where does government get its money from then? Because they're relying on a population, an economically active population, as opposed to maybe a retired population, to keep on paying the taxes and paying for public services that we need. Where would we get the money from if we don't increase the population?
Quite simply, we need to invest in our tourist industry. People come in, have a very nice holiday, spend their money here, and then go back. I mean, to be perfectly frank, the amount of tax which they're going to get from all these people coming in, there's no way going to pay for the services which the government has to pay for to provide for their welfare. It's a no-brainer to me. We simply have far too many people here. It's out of control now. And Mrs. Cope was absolutely right. Nobody's consulted. No one's looked at the infrastructure costs or where we're going to be in 5 or 10 years' time. It's a sort of hit and hope policy which Mr. Cannon and his cohorts have brought upon us. It's absolutely crazy. The roads are chock-a-block. They're falling to bits. We haven't got the infrastructure there. The education system is crumbling. We need more schools, more teachers. It all stems back to the root cause analysis, which is we have far too many people. And unfortunately, we're a small island, only 36 by 7 or 9 or something like that. We have limited resources, and we have to simply live within the resources we have. I think it's crazy.
Neil, can I ask you, in terms of your argument there then, how does that balance with the fact that Jersey is a smaller island with more people, and they obviously are quite economically successful? So in terms of not having enough infrastructure for the size and scale of the island, how are Jersey able to manage it and we aren't, in your opinion?
Well, firstly, Jersey import all their electricity and a lot of their resources directly from France, whereas we have this policy of wanting to do everything in-house. And that's one thing. Jersey, actually, I've been to Jersey. The quality of life on Jersey is nowhere near the same as the quality in the Isle of Man. They're like sardines. They're jammed together. Houses are exorbitantly expensive due to the number of people coming in and the high cost. And we are feeling the impact of high housing costs here now. Specifically, in my view, due to the demand on housing brought about by the buy-to-let market, wealthy people coming in here, buying a substantial number of houses and renting them out. I mean, let's be frank about this, Alex. More people as many people come in, we are losing just as many young Manx people because of the quality of life. It's not here anymore.
Mm.
I can't see any advantages in bringing all these thousands of people in. In fact, all I can see is a road to ruin, to be frank. That's my view anyway.
Yeah. No. Finally, Neil, before you go, I mean, who are, if you don't mind me asking, who are your MHKs? Do you talk to them about this? If you said there, we should have a vote of no confidence in Mr. Cannon's administration, well, that's done through your elected representatives. Do you engage with them?
Well, I'm in the south of the island, but unfortunately, I don't engage with many of the MHKs. I think they have limited capacity, to be honest. There are some good members down there. I mean, Chris Thomas immediately springs to mind. I think he's very astute, very grounded, and obviously has a good academic background. But to be frank, and I'm not being dismissive here or rude, a significant number of them wouldn't be employed anywhere else because they'd fail the 11 plus. They really would fail the 11 plus. It's crazy. I hear them on the radio and I think, if you were in the private sector running in a business like we are, like our company is, they wouldn't survive for 5 minutes. I mean, they just go from one disaster to another disaster without any loss of enthusiasm, to be frank. But
dare I ask,
crazy.
Neil?
It's out of control.
Dare I ask before you go, the next election's in 2 years. Do you fancy standing?
No, I don't fancy standing because I'm not social enough to be an MHK. And to be perfect, no, you need to be social. You need to be able to knock on doors and chat to people and tell them a load of bunkum, to be frank, to become an MHK. The last time around, I listened to all the pre-election broadcasts which you put together, and they were very, very good. And there were some excellent candidates that stood, but the same clowns got back in. Yeah. I mean, vote to turkeys. It's crazy, absolutely crazy.
Okay.
But,
thank you, Neil, for your opinion. Anyway, it's lovely to talk to you. Thanks for calling in.
Thanks, Alex.
Cheers. Bye now. Good to hear from Neil there. Putting his money where his mouth is. He thinks that Manx Care do a great job, and the problem is, we have got too many people. The economic argument, economics, and talking money as opposed to value is something that you do get a lot from politicians, don't you? Especially some more than others. And in terms of get more people here because they will bring us more prosperity, and you sit there going, do we have the infrastructure to support it? Okay. I think I've said it on the Mannin Line before. I'll say it again. It's a case of if they come, we will build it. Whereas really, it should be the other way round. Let's have a quick skeet through some of the texts that are coming in, and then I've got Robert on the line as well. That Manx Care need to sack management on eye-watering salaries. Okay, from 810. Why? Okay, what are the eye-watering salaries once again? That if we have to pay something to get something done, okay, what is considered the going rate? Okay, thank you very much to 500 who says, hi Alex, cutting elective operations because of overspend by Manx Care. Perhaps Douglas Corporation can give Manx Care some of their budget allocation. After all, replacing Henry Bloom Noble Library sign at an estimated cost of £9,000. £9,000 to replace a sign? Crikey. Is it really necessary or even wanted by Isle of Man residents? What was wrong with Henry Bloom Noble? Also, do we really need a skate park in Douglas in the Sunken Gardens? Just saying. Well, thank you for your text. And Richard says, hi Alex, surely it's time our government stopped and took stock of the current situation. Instead of blindly progressing with wind farms, increasing population and other crazy schemes to meet self-imposed deadlines, move the target dates back 10 or 20 years and divert funds to getting the island's infrastructure and services sorted for the current population. Thank you to L, who says, I have friends in sheltered housing. This is the topic about the cost of gas in sheltered housing. When you enter the complexes and units, it's always stoking hot. When I ask why, I get the reply, well, we pay for it in the rent, so we might as well use it. Maybe if they all turned down their thermostats, the bill for the whole complex would be reduced and the reduction passed on to the residents. Yes and no. That almost fits into that argument of that if gas is too expensive for old people, put another jumper on. If you've got people who are elderly, who are in sheltered housing, they're in sheltered housing for a reason. Okay, this is what's called a compassionate society. Okay, in theory, we're meant to have it. Thank you to Gaz, who says Miss Cope said that 195 savings were found before frontline services were hit. So why weren't these savings made before? In fairness, Gaz, where and when, I suppose, yes. that they're there to make savings. So you identify them, you work through the process. The fact that the process isn't going quick enough, I'm sure someone can always criticise and say, yes, something could have been done quicker. But yes, the comment of why was they overspending there before, I can't answer that one, I'm afraid. Robert is on, wants to talk about the steam packet. Hello, Robert.
Hi, how's it going? I'm just thinking about the Whitehaven link. I don't know if it's a nice to have or it's something we could create, or if they've actually linked up with the UK with that, or what.
Do you mean in terms of creating a sea-link to
landing stage?
Yeah. Well, the Whitehaven itself is a tidal port, so they used to do day trips on the Lady of Man and the Little Sea Cat Isle of Man years ago.
Really?
Yeah. They did about 1 or 2 a year. I was on them, but it's a bit like Ramsey Harbour when the tide's out.
And how did you find it?
It was the shortest route to the island, but you're in the middle of nowhere of the Lake District when you get there, so you couldn't use it for freight. And the passenger links aren't particularly good. There's one railway line that goes past Sellafield. So I think what you'd make up for in speed, I can imagine it would have been a good tourist trip for 1 or 2 day trips a year, but I don't think the size of vessels we've got now would even fit in there, quite frankly.
Yeah, but don't we all want to go to Sellafield, really? Don't we just have a look, just see what's what, see actually what's going on, see how much pollution they're putting in the rivers and all the rest of it, and ask those awkward questions? Don't we really want to do that?
Well, to be honest, Robert, if anyone for the steam packet's listening, I'm sure they could sort out they've got their steam packet holidays. They can sort out a package holiday for you to specially go for a day trip to Sellafield if you wanted. I'm sure they're flexible enough for that.
Well, wasn't it a story about sheep on the hills or something like that, and they went all the way up to the top of getting into the wall when they had the Sellafield plant open and all the rest of it, didn't they? Yeah,
there's been many, many stories about that. It's like if you go to Cumbria and see a 3-headed cow as well, all that kind of stuff, yes. But
They had one on British Bake Off. They had a cake of a cow last night, because I was on Roku on streaming. I had a picture of a cow, and I took it and put it on Twitter. And I got about 600 followers afterwards, so I don't know what was that about, but I put the hashtag British Bake Off, and that seemed to erupt.
That'd be why, you see. If you put Bake Off on it, anything goes. But don't tell me how I haven't watched Bake Off from last night yet, so don't tell me who gets thrown out or anything else. So keep it to yourself, all right?
Okay, well, I'll love you and leave you, but have a good one anyway. I think
you
it's
too.
Nice to have.
Yeah, lovely.
Right, bye.
Thanks, Robert, there. I suppose, from a nostalgia point of view and a tourism point of view, we used to have routes to Ardrossan, we did Whitehaven, we did Warren Point at one point for day trips. Fleetwood, of course, was the biggie. Fleetwood, which if you speak to steam packet captains who went in there, it was a bit of a challenge because you got the boat out of Fleetwood by looking behind you to line up with where the channel was. So all of those have gone over the years, and the question is, could our size vessels, the Ben McCree, the Mannin, the Manxman, could they even fit into any of those ports? I very much doubt it. But maybe it's something to look at. Do keep your calls coming in. It's great to hear from you this afternoon. 66 13 68. I'm going to go and have a sip of tea for a moment. Hold on.
Whatever your style, you'll find something stunning to enhance your home at Miller Chaps of Ramsey. From classic elegance to new trends in home design, Miller Chaps have 2 fabulous floors packed with fantastic new furniture, furnishings and homeware. Whether you're looking for fabrics and wallpapers, new flooring, a comfy sofa or unique artwork to complete your look, you'll find it at Miller Chaps, along with much more from their vast inspirational range. Find your style in store today at Miller Chaps of Ramsey.
Construction waste today.
Tells recycle for another day.
A builder skip or two.
Tells skips will bring to you.
Need quality Type 1 stone for your building or contracting job? Then contact Tells with no minimum order for collection or delivery. Call 677 137. Visit Tells Limited in Snugborough or find Tells Limited on Facebook.
Skips are what they do.
We're the guys that hire one to you.
Call Tells Skips today.
677 137.
We're cooking with sunshine, cholera. We're washing with sunshine, cholera. We're heating with sunshine, cholera. The future looks good. Call 676 544. Call 676 544. Call 676 544. The future looks good. 676 544.
Manx Radio's Mannin Line, 25 to 1. Alex in the chair for Andy today. Before 1 o'clock, as part of our 60th anniversary year, looking back at our broadcasting over the last 6 decades, we're going back to October 2019 when John Moss took a walk along Douglas Promenade to survey the damage caused by the strong winds after a very high tide. Okay, in the way that John Moss only can. So stay tuned for that. It's coming up in about 25 minutes' time. A few more of your texts to go through. Kevin says, a ferry terminal in Whitehaven. How much and how long would that take? And wouldn't the proposed wind farm be an obstruction for ships? Good point, Kevin. I don't think it's a serious proposal, don't worry. But yes, it would probably cost us quite a bit. Well, maybe not as much as Liverpool. Who knows? And Liz says, we still don't know how much the new benches on the prom cost. Yeah, I'm not meant to give my opinion on stuff like that, but yeah, they look dreadful. They just look awful. They look like gravestones. They're not even level either. Anyway, they're very uncomfortable. Thankfully, the old ones are still there at the moment. Paul has said MHKs think they're pop stars or film stars or celebrities. Are they? Okay. But they're not. There are MHK that are meant to serve the Isle of Man and the people, so they should be concentrating more on that. In fairness to them, I don't see them acting like pop stars or film stars on red carpets and things like this. They are public figures and statespeople. But, yeah, they are meant to be in... It's whether they're in touch, I suppose, with the people of the Isle of Man. Do they really care about what you care about? Or have they become a bit sort of closed off and start talking strategies and start talking about policies and consultations and things that don't mean everything to people in their everyday lives? Here we go. A bit of conspiracy theory. That I don't know how true this is, says Pat, but I've heard the UK government has been paying the Island Man's government to take refugees in. If this is true, where they are finding the accommodation from. Once again, evidence, please, Pat. I can conjure up everything, quite frankly. What did I say to Bonzo before? This isn't meant to you, Pat. It's not meant to be insulting. But I did like that line that someone sent me. If you didn't hear it with your own ears or see it with your own eyes, don't invent it with your small mind and share it with your big mouth. We should have that as an entry plaque for the Mannin Line, shouldn't we? No one would ever ring in. Question. Okay. This is from Texter 481. The people that are now seeming to flood the island... Flood? Oh, that's very sort of Tory party before the election language. Flood to the island from every corner of the world. Do they have access to the health services? And if so, why? They have never contributed to the system. All the companies that are attracting them to the island make sure that they have private health insurances in place before they set foot on the island. Well, the question I put to you on that one, challenging you, and please feel free, text to 481 to respond, is that the whole point of the NHS, the National Health Service, when it was established, was free at the point of need. Okay, and it's paid for by taxes. And when you are over here and you are working, you are contributing with your national insurance money and, I suppose, through general taxation towards that point. We're not talking about holidaymakers. We're talking about people who come here to live, and health services are available free at the point of need. Children have never contributed towards the paying national insurance. Do we stop treating them until they're old enough to pay? You know, the NHS is meant to be free at the point of need. Otherwise, you can go down an insurance point where you have to pay for your own personal insurance, your children's personal insurance, and you get charged the full whack when you get healthcare. This is what the NHS stands in place of. So, you know, there's two sides of that. What else have we got here? Thank you for Dave. He says, we didn't pay for some of our infrastructure. Effectively, the UK pay for the new nobles and the prison with the 190 million per year overpay of VAT to us, says Dave. Yes, we were claiming too much VAT before the 2008 VAT bombshell, as it were, and we paid for lots of services through that. Okay, the renegotiation took place. Okay, let's have a look. Thank you to the person who texted in saying, well done, I completely agree, but I'm not sure what you're completely agreeing with. And Michelle says, Alex, I wonder what the civil service headcount and salary bill are now compared with the pre-Mars days. Now, Mars was the mutually agreed resignation scheme, and how much was paid out in Mars. This may tell you just how cost-effective the Mars option really was. Hope this makes sense, says Michelle. Now, the Mars scheme, yeah, it was used to effectively cut down the government headcount, wasn't it? The mutually agreed resignation scheme where we paid off people. Well, we didn't pay them off. That's the wrong terminology. We made a settlement with people to retire early, effectively. The other side of that is now there is very little corporate memory in government. because you get rid of the people who've been there for years, and whilst it might look good from a cost point of view, then we'll complain that this hasn't been done right, that's not been done right, because the people who remember how to do that have gone. The people who had the experience have gone. And then I'll listen to Mannin Line and people will complain that we've got all these civil servants coming in from the UK. Well, we got rid of all of ours with experience to cut down the cost. So it's okay for the case maybe of be careful what you wish for. Roy. Someone do call in, by the way. My voice isn't going to last all this hour. Roy. Alex, the NHS in the UK have said that HIV is up 15% because of immigration. Okay, and that the medicine for that is lifelong and expensive. Are we now the NHS for the world or the Isle of Man? Once again, Roy, happy to see figures for that. And also, it goes the same way that lots of people from the Isle of Man and from England went and settled in Spain. I know a lot of people who've gone back to the UK to settle because their family have moved over there and they're getting to old age. So it does work two ways. We expect those countries to basically house and maybe pay for us as well. Andy, here we go. Text to 039. Alex, this is why people don't call in. This is a caller opinion programme, not a presenter opinion programme or correct people's opinions. Bring back Andy. Well, he'll be back on Tuesday. Although, text to 039. Give me a name. Ring up. Challenge me. More than happy. It is a presenter opinion programme. And it's also there to challenge you. If you come up with something, give me your reasons behind it. Sean's been on. Saying ministers are shambles, Alex, and should be ashamed the way they're running the island, just like the clerk of the calls for the TT. Shambles. But I hope that there'll be change for next year. Thank you, Sean, for that. Bobby has been on saying £300,000 for medical cover for TT Manx Grand Prix and Southern 100. Surely this is now a waste of money. You could argue that in terms of things like the medical cover required for the motorsport events, I can imagine the Department of Infrastructure, if Emily Curfey or Jeff Robinson would come on, and if they could give me the figures of how much they have to spend on maintaining the TT course to a race standard, I can't imagine that's not a big chunk of their budget. However, the economic value of spending that money is argued that it's much more valuable to the island to have those races or not. So that you can see it from both sides on that one, Bobby. Julie's been patiently waiting on the phone. And she wants to talk about lifeboats. Hello, Julie.
Hi, Alex. Yeah, it was I had... Sorry, I'll just put you on pause here. Let me... Because I've got you echoing in the background
right.
There.
Yes.
That's it. You're on silent now. It's coming through the computer.
My wife wished she could do that a lot, you know.
I had a conversation yesterday with somebody who shall remain nameless, but what it's triggered is embarrassment and, a disgrace to the Isle of Man. As it's this year's the 200th year of, the lifeboat.
The RNLI, yes.
Yes, and Douglas is number one.
Yes.
Douglas, at the moment, they have had their building condemned, so they can't use it. Their lifeboat is a third-hand lifeboat that used to belong to Ramsey and previously belonged to Peel, that is moored on the outside of the wall. So if there is a call for the Douglas lifeboat to go out, they have to go to a shipping container where all of their gear is contained, get changed there, and then get a minibus around to the sea terminal so that they can then climb down onto their boat.
Wow.
And nobody is doing anything to support them. Now, on top of that, they have been left in a fund, £5.5 million to either rebuild or get a new boat, or to get them all equipped. But the ties that was put on it was that it is for Douglas lifeboat. So if they send it anywhere else, it's going to disappear. It's going to be taken off them.
Yeah.
But there is no support for anybody to do anything to get Douglas lifeboat working as it should do.
So, Julie, what's the blockage there? Because if the money is available, it doesn't sound like it's money that they need.
No, it's not money they need. I mean, they need support from harbours, as to where to put it. Now, they've been told by harbours that the area where it currently is actually belongs to the yacht club, and the yacht club would like to put some berths there for their own yachts.
Right.
And so that if the lifeboat was going to go anywhere permanently, it would have to go up the river somewhere, which is not obviously ideal.
No.
So it's just been brushed under the carpet. The other part of it, and it seems to be like a lot of charities now, where they are controlled by a central group, which in this case is over in Poole, who have said, well, you need to send it to us, and then we'll then redistribute it, to everybody else. And they're going, well, you can't, because it was a benevolent fund that was left.
It's restricted funds, yes. You can only spend it on the thing that it's been left to, yes. So what would you... So I was going to say, Julie, so from your perspective, I'm not sure if you're involved in this or not, but what would you like to see happen? Would you like to, the Minister for Infrastructure, Tim Crookall, to get involved and actually drive through something that would actually get conversations between the RNLI and the Harbours Division of the Department of Infrastructure to get this sorted? Because you're right, it is...
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's, I do believe, that messages have been sent to various people involved with harbours, and it's just been ignored, because this has not happened yesterday. This has been going on for, the whole last year, and possibly even longer. But I'm not in a position to know who to fight or where to go or the time, to be honest, to do it. But I know that a lot of your listeners, everybody's on it, about health and social care and what have you.
Mm-hmm.
But we are we started, well, we didn't personally, but the lifeboat is a key part to the Isle of Man. And we are letting down the guys who are risking their lives going out supporting people. I don't know how much of a delay that would be, that you've got to go to one place and then get on a minibus, put your seatbelt on and drive round over the bridge, to the other side to get into a lifeboat before it's even launched.
It's an emergency service, isn't it, effectively, that is supported from charitable donations?
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, Julie.
It's being stopped from this side and from the other. So if anyone wants to take on the cause, please do.
Well, I've got your number here, Julie, and we'll get Chris Quirk to take a note of it. Do you mind us? So we'll give you a call afterwards to get further details and see if we can get a conversation going. So.
Yeah, brilliant. That'll be wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Julie. Great to speak to you. So, yeah, the RNLI was founded here. The whole point of the Tower of Refuge out there, built by Sir William Hillary, who watched the wreck of the St George and a number of other ships floundering on that rock. He built that there as a static lifeboat and then got the idea to start the RNLI. And, by the sound of it, as Julie says there is a stalemate. There's a blockage. In terms of not funding for once. We normally talk about the fact there's not money available. Okay, well, if it's not money, that if the Minister for Infrastructure is listening or anyone in Harbours, if it's not money, what's the problem? Okay? What is the problem? Thank you, Julie, for getting in touch on that one. Where are we? It's 10 to 1, and Sue is on, wanting to talk about the roads. Hello, Sue.
Hi, Alex. I thought you sounded a bit lonely, so I thought I'd call in.
It's very kind of you. It saves my voice a bit.
I just wanted to talk about a bit of courtesy and consideration on our roads. I appreciate that there are people that feel comfortable driving at 35 or 40 miles an hour on our de-restricted speed roads. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't do it. It'd be helpful if they didn't, if they drove a more attainable speed to suit the rest of the people who are trying to get from A to B. But it'd be nice if people who are in a situation where they want to drive at 35, 40 miles an hour, or people who are in a situation where they have to because of the vehicle, if they could pull in at suitable spaces and let the long queue of traffic behind them go by, and then they can pull out again and go on their merry way. I've been stuck. I regularly make a journey between Kirkmichael and Ballard Crane. And the two mornings, Thursday and Wednesday of this week, I was in a very long queue of cars that were doing between 30 and 40 miles an hour because the vehicle at the front either had to or chose to go at that slow speed. Now, this is at rush hour, if you like, and people are trying to get to work. And, all right, it only adds a few minutes to your journey, but it adds a lot of frustration. And it makes people do silly manoeuvres like overtaking where it isn't really that safe to do so. So it'd be nice if people just looked in the mirror on the odd occasion and thought, well, I've got a few cars behind me, got a few vehicles behind me, I'll just pull in. I mean, look at Glen Helen. It's a suitable place to pull in. It's so smashing. You can accommodate tractors, lorries with trailers, anything in that space. They can pull in, they can let all of the line of traffic go through and then pull out again and go on their way.
And I think it also, I suppose, because I do cycling as well. I'm a reformed sort of cycling Nazi. I used to complain like crazy about cyclists, but when I do go riding on a road, if there's cars coming up behind me, I pull in and wave them past. Do you think generally all road users that we wouldn't have so much general congestion and frustration and possibly, as you say, dangerous manoeuvres if we just considered others around us?
I think that's part of it, Alex, yes. If consideration was taken into point as we're driving along, definitely. I mean, also, people just need to check the highway code and things, because the other night I was driving in the dark and there was somebody parked on the side of the road that I was travelling on. They weren't underneath a lamppost and they didn't have any lights on their vehicle and they were parked the wrong way. So there wasn't even any reflection from their brake lights, the red section. I nearly ploughed into that vehicle. If a vehicle hadn't been coming the other way, then I might have hit it because you don't see them. There's no reflection there. So people need to start thinking about what they're doing with the vehicles, when they're leaving them, when they're driving. They have to start thinking about the other vehicles behind them and loads of stuff like that. There's just not the consideration or the courtesy anymore when people are on the roads.
Okay, good point. Well made. Thank you, Sue. Thank you for your call.
Thank you.
And that's pretty much it. Time for the Mannin Line. Let's have a quick look through some more of your texts. And Gaz has said that, at least the DOI could do was provide a changing room and a store at the sea terminal nearer the mooring instead of the RNLI teams having to use a steel container. Yeah, thank you, Gaz. That's a good point. Let's have a look. That lifeboat money is probably going through to too many administrators, says Des. Thank you, Des. Badum tish. What else have we got? TT course on 3 of the main arterial routes around the island. Are you wanting less money spent on it? Ask how much money has been spent on the airport and the Douglas Ring Roads. It's a good point. The Douglas Ring Roads were a huge capital investment. Thank you very much for that. And thank you to H, who 768, who supported me, saying that I tackle subjects that some people are afraid to discuss. Do I? Oh, okay. Text to 252. Hooper should resign. Well, that's not exactly helpful. You might want to actually deal with the problem. Anyway, so much more we could have discussed, but do not fret. I shall be back again on Monday. Until then, stick around. Christy de Haven's up next with 1 to 3. Take care. Have a good weekend. Ta-da.